Hey everybody, Mark from Northeast Bass Fishing. How you doing? Put together a few clips from some recent fishing trips I took. This first few clips, I tried a new lake out last week, and you can't really tell from this picture, but it was really windy, really a windy day. It was actually a little cool in the morning, so I tried this lake out. Lots of weeds, small lake, and that was one of the first fish I actually got in the boat. About an hour in, hour and a half in. Decent largie on a jig. This was a nice fish on a chatterbait, which you're going to see come up and then jump off. So lost him. Lots of pads in the lake. This is one of the frogfish I actually got in the boat. Nice blow up, and so I'm thinking this is going to be a great lake for frogging. Even when it even gets warmer in the afternoon, but it never panned out. That was the one fish. I had a few other blow ups, but not even great ones. So that was the one fish that I actually got in the boat on the frog. I got him to actually eat the frog. It's just a live target frog, which by the end of the day was, and just lately of fishing it, those rubber legs were pretty much shot. I put some new ones on my one frog, but that was a nice fish. My back camera didn't come out that day, so it's just my close up. And so it was really windy on the other side of the lake if you look like across the lake. So I went back and did this shoreline again and caught one more decent one on the jig next to a pontoon boat. So these were like the four, I guess it was four fish that I actually got in the boat. I lost a lot of fish that day that got off or would swipe at the frog and not get it. So I don't know if it may be being a little cooler and the wind kind of shut them down a little, but it was a nice little lake. I would definitely go back there. Caught some nice fish. I'm sure there's some decent ones in there. And that was the jig I was throwing. It's just a queen tackle tungsten jig with a hors d'oeuvre trailer, and that's a frog that I was using that I redid the legs on it. This was I was out on the river yesterday, and it was a hot one. I hadn't been out on the river in a long time, so I went out and just started fishing around by the ramp, and I was throwing Crazy Hick Bait Company, the peach bum. It's like a Helgramite bait, and I caught some nice fish. Nothing huge, but I did get a lot of bites. Usually I do well with the neds there, but I wasn't really getting much action on a regular ned. So I tried Jason's peach bum, and I caught some decent fish. That first one was a smallie, a lot of little smallies. Largemouth were actually better. That's a decent largemouth right there I got. Might be able to see the bait a little better here. But my back camera had that one disc that was bad. I couldn't figure out the other day why I got what was so. I thought it was glare, but it turns out it's a bad disc. So I just got there's that Crazy Hick Bait Company. That's the peach bum there. Whenever I saw some laydowns, I would flip the jig on it, and I was just throwing that queen tackle tungsten jig. And so there's a lot of, in the river, there's a lot of wood. And in the beginning in the morning, the wood bite was very good, as you'll see here. But later in the afternoon, it kind of shut down as I moved around the river, just looking for different areas where there were some laydowns. Not huge bass, just decent keepers. At this point of the morning, it's not that the heat isn't too bad yet. And so wherever I saw like these little brush piles or maybe a dock, you kind of see that tree going across there. So I'm going to flip the jig up again by that tree. And as I said, I was thinking at this point of the morning, the way the bite is here, that seems like they're these little pound and a half, maybe 2 pound largies are all around this wood. It's going to be a great day flipping, but after that morning flipping bite, it kind of went away. So now I'm back across the other side and working up the shoreline on the river. And I think this might be. I caught one decent smallie. The rest were small. But I think this might be the one that's a decent one. not a monster. Maybe a 2.25, 2.5 on a good day. Probably more like 2.25 or two. As I said, I didn't catch a lot of. I didn't really catch any really big fish as far as bass go. On the river yesterday, and it was the afternoon. It got really hot. But this is definitely the best smallie by far, as you'll see. A lot of small smallies, but I was getting bites, so it was nice getting bites. Just looking for some bigger fish. But I'm sure they're probably out on the channel, out in the current more than where I was, because the water wasn't really. To me, it seemed like the river in that section there is maybe about a foot down. You can see that peach bum bait there, that like Helgramite type bait. Decent smallie. Would have liked to caught some more like that size. I've been happy with that. And I think this is literally like the next cast when this little guy comes up, because the line just like flew to the right, and boom, he was gone. It came off. And then I think this might have been the very next cast after. And you'll see, you get the idea of the size of the fish I was dealing with. But as I said, at least I was getting bit. But I think more in this, this shallower, rocky areas is where there was a lot of little bass. In those areas, I'm sure the bigger ones are off. And I don't know the river. I've only fished it a handful of times since I moved up here, so I'm still learning the river and different areas. Looks like a little swim bait. He's so tiny. Well, this is just a few minutes later. So the way the morning started, I'm catching largemouth, I'm catching smallmouth. Now, granted, they're small, but at least I'm getting bit. But for any of you guys who have ever fished the river, inevitably you're going to find some toothy critters, and I believe this is where I find my. I had a pike go after my bait earlier, and I saw him like swirl at it, and he kind of missed it. That was a little one. This one's a little bigger. And for a minute I was, hoping it was a nice big bass, but then I saw it, the line just, he was pulling drag. He was flying out to deeper water, and then I saw the flash and saw how long he was. I said, well, this ain't no bass. So he's a decent sized pike. I've caught bigger pike here on the river than this one. This is your average size one. But when you're fun fishing, I don't mind catching a few pike here and there, or a pickerel. It wasn't like it was a tournament or anything. So at this point in the morning, I've got, maybe an hour and a half in. It's not really too hot yet. It's getting there, but it's not too bad. But, I'm getting bites, so I was anticipating, a good day. And it was a good day overall. But now after this, I did do more exploring. But the bite definitely seemed to me that it kind of slowed down in the afternoon. So there's that, 24 or whatever, however big he was, pike. Now I've moved up the shoreline. I'm throwing the frog around. And to the left of me, you can't really see it. This fish didn't. He decided not to bite on the camera side of the boat. But there was a bunch of pads, but it was real shallow. Probably less than a foot. So I figured let me throw the frog up there a little, see what happens, if there's any fish around. And this little largie hit. So that was my first frogfish of the day. I think if I remember right, I get one more frogfish. But it's starting to get pretty hot out there. And he did not want. He got it for a little fish. Frog fishing is, when you catch even, pound and a halfers like that in a foot of water, it's still fun. They come flying out of the water and hit the frog. Unfortunately, he didn't get on, his hit didn't get on camera. But I had to get the pliers out to get those hooks out of his mouth. And there he is, little guy. See what he did to my frog. So here I decided to take a ride and just kind of explore the river a little bit. I haven't been up that far. since I've been fishing this area. So not only was it nice to cool down, sit down, and you can see kind of like all those pads and weeds and everything to the different sections of those. So when I went up a little further, I saw one that looked pretty good. Had a little bit of an inlet there. I thought I'd check out, and the only problem is it's really shallow. You can go in there a little bit, but I think that, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but I think the lake there, the river is probably about a foot lower. It hasn't poured that, we haven't had those heavy rains lately, so I think the river's kind of maybe receded a little bit. Didn't seem like the current is that heavy, even though there is definitely current. And here's another frogfish that decides to bite on the left side of the boat. And you can kind of see that area back there. I kind of went back there as far as I could make it and frogged it and saw some little bass and saw tons of perch. There was just tons of perch swimming around there, but no other bass on top. So I went out and flipped along that line and everything and nothing. So I went up to this bridge, took a ride up the river a little further, found this bridge. And I love fishing bridges, but the only thing I found on this bridge was a lot of what you see there, rock bass. I don't know if I ever have gotten into a school of rock bass like I got on these pilings for this old bridge here. And it was just, what's nice about, for you guys who have boats and you have an old Trex and a spot lock, when you've got current on these bridges, you can just sit there and put that spot lock on and just fish. Not have to worry about putting your foot on the trolling motor. It'll keep you in place. And I just caught, one after another, and just hoping eventually it was going to be a bass. But it was just that's a big red eye. I don't. I think that's why I wanted to show you guys that one. I mean, I don't really show red eyes very often, but that one. It was a fat, chunky red eye. At first, I thought they were, maybe I was getting into a school of crappie when I first saw them, and then it was just red eye after red eye after red eye, and right along the second one over, I think it was. I just kind of I kind of sat there, and it was breezy there, so had gotten so hot there in the afternoon that just sitting there in the breeze, and then kind of in the shade, somewhat of the shade of the bridge, made it a little more pleasant there for a while, because it was getting hot at that point of the day. So as you can see, I'm just kind of sitting there spot locked and just throwing that Ned head up. At this point, I might be using the Crazy Hit Company Ned Bum. But I was using that green pumpkin purple, and that seemed to be working the best. And then I got back over here by the side of this bridge piling, and it was just, there were so many red eyes there. I did have one other, after I, get tired of catching red eye and decide to move. But like, see, I mean, they're pretty chunky. As I said, I don't really catch red eye that big. I think I actually just showed you guys the same clip twice. I think I screwed up my my editing a little bit. I might have showed you the same clip twice there. But unless I got two that size, that kind of looked similar to the other clip, so I might have messed up and shown you the same one twice. But you can see I'm sitting in this spot, and it's just one after another, after another, after another. And then like I said, I just kept hoping I was going to kind of maybe clear out the red eyes, and hopefully a bass would move into the section, because as I love when I can find a bridge. I just love to fish to fish those areas thoroughly, and try and see that. So that's always such a natural place for bass and fish to hang out. But as you can see now, I didn't even pausing this. I'm just letting this run, and it was just one after another. I think I was to a point there where it was like 3 or 4, maybe 5 casts in a row, where it was just red eye after red eye. So if you guys like red eyes, it was fun. Usually I always find them to be a pain in the neck. but I was just trying to wean them out and hope I could get something and move out more into the center there. Try and find some bass, but just never happened. Never found them. And that's kind of this is the farthest I've been up on the river. I hadn't been past past this bridge. It's the first time I actually been to the bridge since like I said, since I fished the river. And I would imagine there's times of the year when there's probably some smallies on there, some largies. I did have, after I leave this area, and you can see I'm just kind of bopping that Ned up, and I was trying to keep it moving along the bottom a little bit because there are a lot of rock. There's a lot of, you hang up there a lot. So I always try to keep it moving just a little. If you let it sit too long, when you're fishing areas like that, you tend to get hung up more. So I'm always trying to kind of keep it bouncing over the rocks. If I start to feel like something, a hard surface down there, I'll pop it up and pop it over it. And I think that's kind of it. After that, I just kind of messed around, explored. Didn't really catch any more fish the rest of the day. It was about 3 o'clock at this point. It was hot. The heat was starting to get to me. So I drove back to the ramp, put the boat on the trailer, and headed out. And it was a pretty good day. It was hot. It was kind of miserable being out there, but I caught a lot of fish. There's that Crazy Hick Bait Company. That's the Ned Bum, and that's the Peach Bug. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you got any questions on any debates, let me know. I will put the description in the notes. See you guys soon. Mark out.